This is the first time that an on-duty police officer in Tarrant County has been convicted of manslaughter. This is a big, big deal. And so, he is now going to be facing a 2 to 20, and we're going to be going into the punishment phase. And I've got Meredith Bagui with us who can kind of help us walk through this. So Meredith, we're on with Cynthia Izagiri, and we're live on television. So what can folks expect now that we're going into this punishment phase?
So now we can get into the consequences of what's happened. And this is where the state puts on evidence to convince the jury to give him whatever they think is the appropriate punishment, which I can only imagine would be 20 years, because that's all they can give him. That's the max. And then we have the victim's family, on the other hand, testifying and talking about that. And then we have, all the evidence to show if Aaron Dean is a good person, if he's lived an exemplary life, never committed a crime, probably because he's a police officer. And, they're going to ask for the jury's mercy. And I think that they might get some, because they obviously had some differences of opinion when they went into that jury room, and it took them so long to get to where we are now.
Is that why you think it took so long for this jury to come to a verdict? I mean, this was a long wait. I mean, you and I, actually, we were talking like, well, maybe they're back there debating between murder and manslaughter, because it didn't feel like a hung jury.
Right, no. And we didn't get much, communication from the jury either to know one way or the other. But they didn't send out any notes asking about what manslaughter was or what the definition of reckless was, and so we didn't have any indication of what was causing the holdup. But now I think that we know it was definitely between those two charges.
Let's figure out which way we're going to go. And you know what? We don't know, what swayed them. Was it the argument that the prosecutors made in those final closing arguments, when they're talking about the cone? For you, I don't know, for folks that didn't cover this as closely as we have, in closing arguments, the prosecutors talked about what's called the cone of glass, and how when you look at Atatiana's hands, that she didn't have any glass in her hands, and they basically said that indicated that she did not have that gun outstretched as Aaron Dean had described, that she didn't have it in front of her face because she didn't have glass in her hands. And a really key point, yesterday we had Erin Hendricks on as our legal expert, and she said what she really keyed in on was when Ashley Diener, one of the prosecutors, brought up that you had to show that Atatiana had engaged in unlawful, deadly force, and there, and without that, you couldn't make the self-defense claim. In your mind, now we re-listened to these closing arguments this morning. What do you think made the difference, Meredith? If we're reading the tea leaves here.
Yeah, I think that they felt that he was being reckless about not giving her the chance to put her hands up, not giving her an opportunity to show that she wasn't a threat. And that he clearly acted recklessly when he fired that shot through her window.
And I have to bring up, Cynthia, that they were able to show from that body cam and from analysis of that body cam that it was a half a second, but as he's uttering these commands to show your hands in between the firing of that handgun, and that it's likely, the experts said, that he is literally firing as he is giving her commands. She really just had no opportunity to respond one way or the other. Cynthia? I mean, and look, Tarrant County is different than Dallas County, folks. You got to understand something about Tarrant County is a much more, it's a wider county. And so, and a lot was made of the fact that there were no black people on this jury, but what we saw was this jury take the time to consider this evidence, and that's what we want from a jury, folks. We want a jury to take their time, look at the evidence, and come to a conclusion. And here they have come to a conclusion. And also, it's also historic because we have had no convictions of an on-duty police officer in Tarrant County for manslaughter. So this is a big deal. It's just a really big deal, and I think it's a historic day for this county.